The famous Buddhist shrine of Lakhindarer Medh, also known as Gokul Medh, located in the western part of Bangladesh, to the north of the small town of Bagura and near the village of Gokul. Its construction dates back to the 7th century BC. The central structure of the archaeological site is a multi-tiered pyramid-shaped structure where each tier consists of the blind chambers filled with the packed soil, and the walls were made of the baked bricks. This method of formation volume for the construction of Buddhist stupas is typical only for Bengal region and is not found in any other places. The excavations at Lakhindarer Medh were carried out by the famous Indian archaeologist, specialist in the Indus Valley civilization Nanigapal Majumdar in 1934-1936. His expedition discovered terracotta tablets from a Gupta period, as well as traces of the existence of building of later origin. Gold leaf with an image of the bull Nandi and rectangular stone slabs found in the temple suggest that in 11th-12th centuries during the reign of the Sena dynasty, the Shiva temple stood on the foundation of a stupa of early Buddhist origin. The location of Lakhindarer Medh was not chosen by chance. Just 2 kilometers to the northeast of it towered the walls of the Mahastan citadel. However, Mahastan is just the name of the area where the numerous ruins of the ancient city of Pundarnagar are scattered. The city itself was founded by the ruler of the Mauryan Empire in the 3rd century BC and existed until the 13th century AD. In all likelihood, the choice of its location was directly related to the terrain. It was built on natural terraces surrounded by an alluvial plain, which helped to avoid flooding during the rainy season. At the same time, to the east of it flowed the navigable river Karataya, which connected Pundarnagar with Chittagong and provided access to the Bay of Bengal. During that era, trade routes from the coast of the Bay of Bengal led through Assam, Sikkim and Nepal to Tibet. Pundarnagar, located on this route, was the most important commercial center on the whole northern Bengal. Due to the established contacts between the Mediterranean civilization of antiquity and the Indian subcontinent, the existence of the Buddhist state with its capital in Pundarnagar was known to Greek and Roman navigators. Thus, in Claudius Ptolemy's manuscript Geography of the 2nd century AD, mentioned the province of Kerala where a large river flows, named Kratoya, through which trade takes place with areas in the interior of the continent. Throughout almost the entire history, Pundarnagar was a stronghold of Buddhism, as evidenced by Chinese travelers who visited the city in the 7th century AD. The exception was the reign of King Shashanka, when the disparate Bengali principalities first time was united into the single Gauda state. During his reign, Buddhists were persecuted. He also known with the destruction of the sacred Bodhi tree and ancient Mahabodhi temple in Bodh Gaya. The city finally fell into decay in the 13th century, mainly due to the invasion of the Delhi Sultanate and the spread of Islam. Even during the colonial era, the British administration of Bengal showed interest to the material traces of ancient civilizations scattered within the radius of approximately 20 kilometers from the ancient city of Mahastan. However, the first systematic excavations were organized by the Archaeological Survey of India only in 1928-1929. Then the work was carried out under the guidance of the renowned archaeologist Kashinath Narayan Dixit and focused primarily on 3 mounds: Bairagir Phita, Govinda Phita and Munir Gaon. In the 1960s, work resumed under the leadership of the eminent exilic historian Nazimuddin Ahmed, who headed the Department of Archaeology and Museums of Pakistan. During the excavation that continued until the early 1990s, 18 cultural layers were identified, which researchers attributed to 7 chronological periods, from the era preceding the origin of Mughal Empire to the Islamic conquest of Bengal. The brick foundations of Buddhist temples Baragir Bhitan, King Parashuram's palace, water reservoir of Upundanagar called Jayat Kundan, fragments of city walls and bastions of the citadel that have survived to this day. All these objects belongs mainly to the 6th period, defined as an era of the reign of Pala dynasty, from the 8th to 12th centuries AD, and Sena dynasty, from 11th to 12th centuries AD. The excavated and restored archaeological site of Bihar Dhap and Vasu Bihar, located in the vicinity of the ancient city of Maharashtra, represent the foundations of 2 Buddhist monasteries and 2 temples, as well as 5 completely excavated mounds where ruins of the similar origin were found. Bihar Dhap archaeological site occupies a rectangular area measuring 200 by 250 meters. After a series of excavations carried out between 1979 and 1986, ruins of the 2 Buddhist monasteries were discovered in the western part of the site, standing close to each other. In the eastern part, the foundations of a temple were excavated. Later, in 2005, the ruins of another temple of early origin were discovered. Researchers date the first period of construction of religious buildings at Bihar Dhap archaeological site to the 4th-5th centuries AD. The second and the third stages of construction were carried out between the 6th and the 10th centuries. Situated 2.5 kilometers north of Bihar Dhap, the archaeological site of Vasu Bihar, locally known as Narapathir Dhap, is a complex comprising the ruins of the 2 Buddhist monasteries and the foundation of the semi-cruciform shrine of the post-Gupta period. Beside to the ruins of the monasteries and temple, during the archaeological seasons of the 1973, 1974 and 1998, more than 60 bronze sculptures were found in Vasu Bihar, mostly excavated from the monastic cells. They depict Buddha or Dhyani Buddhas, Bodhisattvas and Bodhishakti, the transcendental entities of the Vajrayana tradition. Paharpur, the most important center for the spread of Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhist conceptions in the West Bengal and Magadha, arose through the efforts of the second Pala dynasty ruler Dharmapala, who reigned from 770 to 810 CE. During this time, Vangala kingdom reached the peak of its power, rapidly expanding westward, capturing neighboring Bihar and temporarily subjugating regions in the north of the Hindustan subcontinent, pushing aside Pratihara kingdom from there. Dharmapala, as well as his predecessor Gopala, patronized Buddhism and founded a large number of monasteries. The flourishing of numerous Mihara monasteries, which were essentially the largest educational centers of Bengal, occurred in the 8th, 11th centuries. There was an exchange of religious and philosophical ideas between these monasteries, spread by the adherents of the various Buddhist schools. The basis of prosperity and reliable source of support for these centers were first located by the rulers of the Pala dynasty, as well as donations from the trade guilds and laymen. Mahavihara, or the Great Monastery in Paharpur, entered a period of significant expansion at the beginning of the 11th century. During this period, 177 monastic cells appeared surrounding its main sanctuary and 4 sites. From the very moment of its foundation, the Pala rulers didn't leave the monastery without their attention. Thus, during the reign of the Mahipala, from 885 to 1043 CE, extensive work was carried out to renovate and repair it. The first time Somapura Mahavihara was destroyed in 1024 during the invasion of the army of the Vanga kingdom, which came from the region of the lower Ganges river delta. All the wooden buildings of the monastery were set on fire, the extensive library was badly damaged. The famous scholar, philosopher and ascetic Karuneshwar Mitra died in the fire, having refused to leave the monastery. Despite the significant damage, a century later the monastery was completely restored. At that time, the Tara temple was added to the edifices of the complex. At the end of the 12th century, the Pala Empire, having exhausted its internal resources and rapidly losing controlled territories, was conquered by King Ballala of South Bengal Sena dynasty. Unlike the Pala rulers, he adhered to Hinduism, a more traditional and understandable set of religious beliefs for the masses at the time. After the conquest, deprived of the support and patronage of the authorities, the monastery quickly fell into decline and was finally abandoned after the Islamic expansion into West Bengal in the 13th century. The vast territory of Somapura Mahavihara covers an area of 8.5 hectares, in the center of which is the three-tiered stupa decorated on the second and the third tiers with row of terracotta tiles with illustrations of scenes from Jatakas, as well as scenes and characters from Hindu mythology. On the second tier there is a passage that runs along the perimeter of the entire stupa, allowing a more detailed examination of the tiles. According to experts, about half of the tablets are originals that have survived from the early Middle Ages. Some of the heavily damaged and completely lost tiles were reconstructed based on the surviving descriptions. All buildings of the monastery were located around the stupa strictly symmetrically, along the axis corresponding to the cardinal directions. At present times, only the foundations remain of them. In horizontal projection, the plan of the whole complex was a cross-shaped mandala, its main entrance facing north. During the heyday of the Pala Empire, the diversity of forms inherited from early Buddhist temples gradually became a thing of the past, giving way to monumental structures, where all elements were systematized and united by a common concept. This approach proved to be sustainable and was used throughout Bengal in the construction of essentially identical viharas. The layout of Somapura Mahavihara reflected new trends and influenced the formation of all Buddhist architecture of that time. The archaeological site of Bharat Bhayna is located 30 kilometers west of the large city of Khulna, the capital of Khulna division in southwestern Bangladesh. The ruins date back to the 7th century CE and believed to be the remains of a Buddhist monastery. However, the famous Indian archaeologist Kisinath Dixit, who first conducted excavation at the site, suggested the existence of even more ancient structure on the place of monastery, the appearance of which dates back to the 5th century CE. The emergence of Buddhist monasteries in the territory corresponding to modern Bengal in the middle of the first millennium CE is associated with the collapse of the vast and powerful Mauryan Empire and gaining of independence by their former province, the historical region called Samatata. During the classical period of the Indian subcontinent, the rulers of Samatata were in vassal relations with the expanding and gaining influence Central Indian Gupta Empire, paying tribute to them. At the end of the 6th century after the collapse of the Gupta Empire, political power in Samatata was seized by the former Gupta vassal, ruler Shashanka, who created the state of Gauda Desh and founded the Gauda dynasty. After the end of Gauda Desha, the independent dynasties that ruled in Samatata were Bhadra, Khatga, Diva, Annavita, Chandra and Varman. From the point of view of the spread of Buddha teachings, the most notable was the ruler of the Divas and Chandras, who were devoted followers of Tantric Buddhism and built many Buddhist temples viharas, both in their capitals Diva Parvata and Bikramapur, likewise throughout the whole Bengal. Vihara Monastery, now called Bharat Bhayna, was probably one of the 30 Buddhist Sangharamas of Samatata, mentioned by the famous Chinese monk, translator and pilgrim Huan Tsang, who visited Bengal in the 7th century CE during his 70-year journey through countries of Buddhist world. It is believed that the alleged ancient temple was built by the mythical king Bharat, who independently ruled an area roughly corresponding to the territory of the modern Khulna division in the first half of the 8th century, when anarchy reigned throughout the Bengal preceding the coming establishment of Pala dynasty. If this dating is correct, then Bharat Bhayna is about 200 years older than the famous Somapura Mahavihara Buddhist monastery and now gone. From an architectural point of view, the surviving and excavated ruins of the site demonstrate the layout of an ancient structure consisting of a raised rectangular superstructure with terraces that now completely lost and base standing on foundation, the main volume of which consists of a blind cells made of bricks and filled with soil. During the excavations, a terracotta Shiva Lingam, a male bust, a terracotta female head, several clay shards and fragments of clay tablets with images that served as a decoration for the temple were discovered. Typologically, these finds date back to the period between the 5th and the 6th centuries AD. Shatgumbad Mosque, which literally means the 60th Dome Mosque, owes its existence in the mid-15th century to Khan Jahan Ali, a renowned Sufi ascetic and builder who ruled over what is now Jessore and Khulna districts and Barisal region of southwestern Bangladesh. Khan Jahan Ali came from the noble family Tughlaq, a Turk origin dynasty that ruled the Sultanate of Delhi until the 1413. Right up to the very moment of appearance of Amir Timur's army on the borders of Sultanate, this state was involved into the internecine war between relatives from this dynasty, who simultaneously ruled from the two capitals, Delhi and Firuzabad. After the fall of Delhi, which was accompanied by the mass slaughter, looting and destruction, anarchy, chaos and devastation reigned in the northern India for years. In these circumstances, Khan Jahan Ali considered it best to leave homeland and head to the east. Appearing at the court of Bengal Sultanate of Narisuddin Mahmud Shah, Khaja Khan Ali became his vassal and received to manage the undeveloped lands and mangrove forest area of the Sundarbans. Acting consistently and decisively, Khaja Khan Ali began to improve the fiefdom he had received, the so-called Jagir, by launching construction of roads, bridges, caravanserais, as well as an infrastructure for agriculture needs, ponds, water reservoirs, the so-called dikhi, and irrigation canal systems. Sunni Muslim deeply immersed in religion, Khaja Khan Ali paid special attention to mosques and madrasas, personally designing them and introducing into South Bengal a distinctive style of Indo-Islamic architecture, widespread in his home of northern India and bearing stylistic influences from the Islamic architecture of Persia and Turkey. An already established area which called Paragana during the time of Delhi Sultanate, Khaja Khan Ali named Khalifatabad in honor of his liege lord, the ruler of Bengal Sultanate. The capital of the region was in Haveli Khalifatabad. Nowadays the city is called Bagirhat. Shatgumbad Mosque has become one of the three largest religious buildings not only in Bagirhat but throughout the whole Bengal. Two other similar mosques have not survived to this day, and the Shatgumbad eventually fell into dilapidated state, requiring major restoration. Significant efforts to preserve their unique structure were undertaken by British colonial administration in the first half of the 20th century. Later, the archaeology departments of Pakistan and then Bangladesh respectively were engaged in the restoration of the mosque. Among the architectural heritage left by Khaja Khan Ali in Bagirhat in addition to Shatgumbad Mosque is worth mentioning his oven mazar, which also well preserved to this day. There is an elements of Bengali Chowchala style are used. A single dome mosque attached to it, structurally a copy of the mazar, and the so-called 9-dome mosque standing on the western bank of the Takur Dikhi water reservoir, which also was dug by the order of Khaja Khan Ali.